As the rain came down my window, I heard the wind blow all around.
Hi, my name is Taylor. Welcome to Shiran.
My name is Michael Donovan, and welcome to Shiran.
Hi, I'm Jonas, and welcome to Shiran.
Hi, I'm Jonas, and welcome to Shiran.
I'm Sam Merkline, and welcome to Shiran.
The region of Shiran has historically been home to one of the longest standing civilizations in the world. Specifically, this sizable region was at one point completely unified under one empire, the Shi. The Shi Empire dominated global trade for hundreds of years and were able to ship products across the ocean to other continents. They were extremely advanced, but by 1500 BC, nomadic tribes invaded the region. These nomads were from the southeastern region of the continent, beyond the Shi's borders, and although they had not identified as one collective name, the Shi Empire referred to them as the Ran people. Despite their significant ethnic differences and frequent disputes, both the Shi and Ran population shared the same religion, Sikh. This point of similarity was never fully acknowledged, and war ensued. Through years of malicious war and collapse of the Shi family line, the Shi Empire fell. The region was overwhelmed with nomadic tribes from other regions of the world, which mixed with the Shi natives to create a mixed race that still dominates the region. This merger between the two ethnicities has created a national identity for the region, which was incredibly successful civilization for more than 3,000 years. It wasn't until the late 1700s when the Shiran region began to crumble. During the late 18th century and early 19th century, a series of unfortunate events unraveled, starting with a major drought in the southern section of the country, the region of the Ran. This drought brought a lack of water to the area and dried up the Ro River, which is now known as the Dry River. The drought in the south brought a significant famine for the Ran people of the south, which led to major civil unrest, as Shirani citizens began turning against one another, needing food. By 1800, the country had divided, and the fall of Shiran became known as yak season. The Shi and Ran populations split along the wettest river, with their only point of interaction at the capital, New Delhi. Quickly following the divide of the Shi and Ran people, countries capitalized on the opportunity to take over the fractured region. The large country to the northwest, Mexico, occupied Shiran region for many decades, starting in 1803. Imposing a form of occupation for the region, Mexico treated both ethnic groups, but especially the minority Shi population, like animals. They imposed strict order and attempted to build up the economy of the region with multiple plans of revitalization, which all failed. The Mexico country did succeed in profiting thoroughly from the occupation and left the region when they had sufficiently cleared the redwood forest of the northwest region in 1893. Once the Mexico had left the Shiran region, another nation, Madagascar, swept in to capitalize on the fragile nation, which was recently stripped of its resources. Madagascar occupied the region from 1895 to 1956. Madagascar was malicious in their governance over the Shi and Ran populations. This form of totalitarian colonization impacted the Shi and Ran people tremendously, as it gave them a common enemy, allowing them to forget disputes and work together yet again. By combining forces in secret from the Madagascar people, they were able to defeat them in a quick but extremely bloody war from November 1955 to June 1956. On June 15, 1956, the Shiran people had gained independence. The Shiran population worked to quickly establish a government and looked to its historic roots of religion-based government. They established a constitutional theocracy. With this establishment of the government, the Shirani government developed a long and comprehensive constitution in 1957. The Shirani government established a system of patron clientelism that they referred to as pakal. This system allowed them to perform political favors to people who were able to pay for them. While this pakal system funded the government in the early days of the newfound Republic of Shiran, it sparked a culture of corruption that spread throughout the country. During the first decade, the country succeeded economically, politically, and socially, but the corrupt practices driving it came back to bite the government. People became distrustful of the government when these issues were not addressed. The Shirani people began to create resurgent groups led by non-Sikh in the south against the leaders of the country. The government reacted in excess by creating policies and opposed all minorities and repressed Christians, especially within the country. This only resulted in further disparities between the religious minorities, who primarily occupied the south, and the Sikh population who dominated the north. By the early 1970s, the Shirani people had discovered that they had massive reserves of oil in the central region of the country along the Wettest River. The Shirani government, led by young charismatic supreme leader Ho Lee Shi, the country was barely changed by this emergence of oil within the country. Instead, a small few within the government and in the business sector invested heavily and capitalized off this wealth. Most of these people who profited were in the north and only increased the disparities between the north and south. Without much hope for the future, the Shirani citizens have spent the last 40 years under the same repressive government led by Ho Lee Shi. Every 5 years, elections are held and new presidents are elected, but the unequal distribution of wealth and massive social issues continue to grip the country.
The Republic of Shiran encompasses the largest area of land in the world and possesses diverse climates within its borders. The southwest is dominated by arid and semi-arid climates, while the central and northwestern regions are far more suitable to agriculture. In the southwest, natural resources other than oil and natural gas are very scarce. Much of this area is unpopulated. Early civilizations formed around the western peninsula where the delta of the Wettest River is, at the southern border of the landmass, around the delta of the Dry River. This land was highly desired because the Wettest River and the Dry River provided fertile soil for early settlers. As the civilization became more advanced, people moved inward, following the Wettest River. The Wettest River Delta region I can't read. Change it. The Wettest River Delta region became really prosperous early on because of their close access to other lands. The peninsula served as a port for trading, which helped the population boom a century before the tragic yak season. The Dry River Delta civilization started to prosper after the colonization as well. Cities also erupted after the Industrial Revolution of the country. Rates of oil production and export were able to soar due to the river providing easy transportation of the oil to the other countries due to the close border. The central portion of the country also contains large oil and natural gas deposits, which contribute to the emerging wealth of the country. The Wettest River and the two other rivers which flow into the Wettest River, the Wet River and the Wetter River, also allows easy ways to transport the oil from the central region to the coast. The capital city of Shiran, The capital city of Shiran, New Dizze, is located around the area where the Wet River and the Wettest intersect. The city is not the most populated city, but the city was planned out after the revolution to settle civil unrest between the Shi and the Ran people. There are 30 states in the Republic of Shiran in the federal district of New Dizze. The more prosperous states are around the rich and oil reserves and along the major river deltas.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Something that we forgot to add earlier, but we still think that is important.
That is the dumbest.
We get our legitimacy from the Sikh religion and the Constitution of 1959. Donna, take it over. Can we just sit down? Don't stop recording.
Some important religious demographics in Shiran are the Sikh at 68.9% of our population, Christians at 13.7% of our population, Muslims 10.3% of our population, and 7.1% are of other religious groups. The major ethnicities in Shiran include the Shi people, accounting for 35% of our population, the Ran people, accounting for 60% of our population, and other, accounting for 5% of our population. When it comes to urban versus rural living, 45% of our population live in urban areas, 55% live in rural areas. Shiran has an extremely young population, which is growing. The younger population are more left-leaning, as the older people tend to pick sides with more right-leaning parties. The people living in urban areas tend to vote more liberally, while in the rural areas... Dude, can you actually write a sentence? Tend to vote more liberally, while in the rural areas tend to lean more conservatively.
We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
The Republic of Shiran has a constitutional theocracy. The head of state is derived from the Shi family and the Ron family. In its history, both men and women have ruled as the head of state. These families have been notorious of claiming lands several centuries before. Shiran has a federal system. Due to the divides created during yak season, the people who developed the government believed that the best way to lessen the conflict between the two people was to have a federal system. That's all I have. Our current supreme overlord, his name is Holy Shi, who's not affiliated with a party. The supreme overlord is more of a figurehead than a policymaker, similar to the Queen of England. Wo Shi is the head of the state, but not the head of government. Our current president is Michael Hawk. He's on the Manim party. The president is the head of government in Shiran, opposite to the supreme overlord. Hawk is the primary policymaker in Shiran. Our vice president is Sir An Rap, from the Manim party as well. He would take over president if he were to die in office. What's next? We can think.
President is the executive leader of Shiran.
The president is the executive leader of Shiran. He's elected through direct popular vote. The president can serve unlimited, non-consecutive 5-year terms. Terms are non-consecutive so that the president can focus on governing and not campaigning for his next 5 years. We have a bicameral legislature. The lower house, the House of Representatives, has a total of 400 seats. The upper house, the Senate, has 2 representatives of each of the 30 states and has 3 more from the federal district of Nudes. That's it?
That's it.
Shiran political economy is currently based off of a rentier state. Shiran has grown tremendously over the past 50 years with the discovery of oil. The large oil reserves, which were discovered in 1959 in the central region of the country along the wettest river, have become the most profitable aspect of modern Shiran. While the economic returns of oil in Shiran have been significant, only a small percent of what is made is returned to the people. For the most part, the elite, government officials, and leaders of oil companies are making massive amounts of money, and only a small amount of it trickles down into the economy. The majority of the country is reliant upon the same activities that Shiran has been successful in for thousands of years. The primary functions that drive Shiran's economy is agriculture in the northwest and textile production in the south. These industries have been successful for centuries and are much of the reason that Shiran was politically and economically dominant historically. Although the advanced agriculture and textile innovations once had are well known, Shiran is still known for the success of these industries. While Shiran's political economy is a complex one, the primary industries that it survives off of is oil, agriculture, and textile. The civil society of Shiran is independent from the institutions of government. Despite the tight theocratic rule, Shiran has had a strong civil society. Hundreds of civil society groups exist within the country, but these are some of the most prevalent and successful within Shiran. 1. The SR. This is the most prominent media outlet in the country and was founded in the early 1970s when all press was free. Since then, press has become more strict, but historic precedence of this investigation group allows it to continue. The SR works to independently expose and uncover corruption. This organization has been put under immense pressure over the last 20 years to become less attacking towards what, Taylor? Towards minorities. 2. Nanira. Known around the world as an extremely effective environmental organization, Nanira has paved the way in protecting the natural features and wildlife of Shiran. Although the oil companies still dominate Nanira's efforts in central Shiran, Nanira works tirelessly with a large base of volunteers to peacefully protect negative environmental actions perpetuated by Shiranian companies. 3. Wuxi. Can I stand out there and say? Wuxi is the most prominent women's rights group, especially within the Shi ethnicity. This group started as primarily a Shi organization. It has spread to members of all ethnicities. The Wuxi frequently protest the government and their suppression of women, including the lack of pay women receive, 61 cents for every dollar, and the right to wear any clothing, not just the conservative dress recommended by the Shiranian government.
When I knew what to do, I could break right on through. Yeah, the clouds aren't so hard.
That is.
First you fall down, then you jump back.